Lewis Hamilton is having quite some feelings towards Mercedes as they didn't allow him to do the pre-season test in Abu Dhabi with Ferrari, something that the Maranello team did with Sainz, as the seven-time world champion has now opened up about this situation for the first time since it was brought to light. While we thought that it wouldn't have such an impact on his accommodation with the Italian squad, the Brit believes otherwise, and this poses the question, did Mercedes do Hamilton dirty with this move, and if so, was it a planned one that would put his hopes down of winning an 8th championship on the easy route? It's safe to say that Hamilton's departure from Mercedes was the most talked about point from the 2024 season. However, it didn't come without its own cons as well. The Brackley-based team felt betrayed in a way that he announced this move before even testing out the W15. And if we're to look at how the statements from Wolff looked, it was easy to understand that he was infuriated, even though he expected such a situation to happen, but maybe not as soon as it did and not in the manner it did. Nevertheless, many believed that Mercedes would act like gentlemen and let Hamilton do the tyre testing in the post-season sessions with his new team, but this is something that was denied by Wolff, as he said that first, Vasseur never asked for it, and second, there were too many contractual obligations that Hamilton needed to do with his team and the sponsors, which would last until the 31st of December. This is the date on which Hamilton can join Ferrari at the earliest, and what is known so far is that the first test will be with the F175, the car that was driven back in 2022. So when talking about not being allowed to do the tyre test with Ferrari's SF24, Hamilton acknowledged the fairness of the contract, but said that it's going to hurt him a lot, as he added, "I know Vasseur wanted it to happen. For me, I was in two minds. Driving the red car for the first time in Abu Dhabi does not excite me. In the perfect world, you'd get to drive it and not be seen and do the first rollout next year. When I did raise it with Toto, they had all these plans that I've got to go and see some of the sponsors and say their farewells. I don't think it was ever going to be allowed, even if I'd asked for it, but I'm contracted with the team until December 31st, and that is totally fine. It doesn't bother me because I wasn't going to do the test. I told Fred that's not what I want to do. Am I missing out on something? For sure. It definitely delays the process and makes the start of the year harder, but we'll do our best to recover from it." Throughout the past couple of years, there have been tons of talks that Mercedes is sabotaging Hamilton, and even though he drove an experimental car for the majority of the season, he still finished very close to his teammate and managed to win 2 races for the first time after the 2021 Jeddah win. But if there is one driver on the grid who can overcome all of these hurdles, that is definitely Hamilton. It's just the fact that things have been made a lot harder than they needed to be for the transition from Mercedes to Ferrari, and it's obvious that Mercedes wouldn't have let him go so easily as we believed in the first place. Yep, this is a practice that teams like Red Bull did with Gasly and Alpine did with Piastri, and this year we've seen Alpine do the same with Ocon and Ferrari with Sainz, but the magnitude of their contracts and tenures with their teams is incomparable to the one of Hamilton and Mercedes. This is the most successful partnership in the history of the world, with 6 drivers' championships and 8 constructors' titles, and to believe that you can let go so easily without thanking everyone who stood behind you for all of those years was kind of a far-fetched scenario that even Wolff admitted wasn't possible, as it's not up to him, but to the sponsors who are deciding about similar situations. Be that as it may, Vasseur is full of hope that Hamilton is the man for the job to bring Ferrari back in contention, and while his first hurdle will be his teammate Leclerc, who has been part of this up and down project since 2019, the Frenchman is adamant that the transition between these two becoming teammates will be very smooth. Of course, now they are full of respect towards each other, but we saw what happened back in Vegas and the serious threat that Leclerc sent to his team. From now on, I'm only thinking about myself. So that should be a message to Hamilton as well. When talking about the missing performance that Ferrari had in 2024 in order to become champions in the Constructors' Championship, Vasseur claimed that Hamilton is the one who is going to help them in pursuing it to the absolute maximum, as the team principal of Ferrari added, I think it's always important to have people coming from other teams with a different culture. It's nothing to do against Italians or English or whatever. It's just that we are in the business when the transfer of know-how is important and we are a bit isolated. But it will be a good push for us to have, and it's already the case because we were recruited a little bit to some other team. And I think it's a good push because you see it a bit differently. I'm convinced that Lewis will come with his own experience, with the background of 18 years in Formula 1 or 17 with a couple of titles and so on. It will be a good push just to keep this mindset to try to do a bit better everywhere, not to imagine that the performance is coming from the others into the team. It's not that the performance is coming just from my hero or whatever, it's coming from everybody, and this is important. There is no doubt that Hamilton will bring a revolution to Ferrari, not just from a driving point of view, but also financially. This is the man who has won 7 Drivers' Championships in his career, and the man who has done nothing but win throughout his entire F1 time. He almost won the championship on his first try in 2007 and succeeded in the last corner in 2008. So to say that he is washed up or the wrong driver to sign at this age is definitely an understatement. All you have to do is watch his last ever race with Mercedes in Abu Dhabi and the Las Vegas one in the same year, and needless to say, Silverstone and Spa were gems on their own. So Hamilton does need a little bit of a change of scenery because he has been part of those who disagreed with the decision to keep the zero pod design back in 2022, and a massive amount of those engineers have now left the team. One of them is Loic Serra, who is believed to be the main man at fault for bringing Hamilton to Ferrari, as he might have sensed something before the change of the regulations that pushed Hamilton in the direction to change teams just 1 year before there's a new set of regulations in place, just like he did back in 2013, changing from McLaren to Mercedes. Vasseur didn't stop here, and when talking about the impact of Hamilton in leaving no stone unturned in Ferrari's massive puzzles that are going on right now in their heads, the Frenchman continued, I perfectly remember Lewis in 2006 in GP2 that he was already pushing on small details. At the end of the day, if you have a look, I think the average delta between McLaren and us, perhaps in qualification, is a couple of hundredths. And we are really at this stage, and it's also with Red Bull and Mercedes that we are speaking about details coming from 100 topics of the car. We really need to have this kind of mindset to chase the last thousandth in every single area. I think Lewis will be a good asset for this also. All of this goes to show that the collaboration between these two is going to be big, and whether or not Lewis will be able to overcome the first obstacle on his way, the Prince of Ferrari and the man who has been dubbed to be the next champion of the Maranello team, time will tell. But as all things stand right now, the scenery is set for an epic showdown between Leclerc and Hamilton. And while the 7-time world champion isn't particularly known for calling his own tactics and deciding his own race, maybe this will change in Ferrari as he's learned from his mistakes in Mercedes, particularly in the last couple of years. With all this in mind, what do you think about Hamilton missing out on the tyre test with the SF24, and do you think it's going to take a dent in his confidence to accommodate as early as possible with the Maranello squad? Let us know what you think in the comments below.